Stop scrolling. This might clear up a whole lifetime of confusion for you. Now let's be real for a second. If you've ever prayed behind someone or even prayed with someone or beside someone, and you wondered why it was that they didn't raise their hands after they came up out of the rukuʿ, or maybe you were the one who raised your hands and you got strange looks, like, you know how it goes. Sometimes you be in the masjid and people are looking at him like, yo, why did he do this or why didn't he do this? You might have been on the receiving end of that. There's something important that you need to know. So pay attention. It's not about the movements that we make in our prayer. It's about something else completely different. It's about unity. It's about knowledge. And it's about unlearning all of the misconceptions and misinformation that's been dividing us as a community for years. Now, because of the fact that many of us, especially growing up in the West, we're taught this principle that causes us to misunderstand so much and so many different people. And that is the fact that either you do it this way or you're wrong. Now tell me there's even one of you in the crowd right now that hasn't heard that, hasn't been taught that coming up in life. But the truth is that this isn't what our scholars tell us. This isn't even what the Prophet ﷺ has shown us in his da'wah. And if you don't take the time to learn this, you might just continue judging other individuals or even being judged for practicing something that may actually be the Sunnah. So let's take a minute or two to talk about the situation of rafʿ al-yadayn, the raising of the hands in the prayer. And let's discuss some of those things that you've never been told about it, so we can cut down on the argument, or we can stop the arguing. Now, why does this topic actually matter? It matters for a couple of different reasons. I'm going to break them down into 3 different reasons. First and foremost, we have the personal lens. We have the community lens, and we have the future lens. And these are the 3 lenses that you've heard me talk about throughout the previous videos. But I want to talk about those now in relation to the situation of raising the hands. Or as we said in Arabic, we call it rafʿ al-yadayn. When we talk about this first lens, the personal lens, you might actually be carrying some guilt or some doubt around about that's wrapped around your salah that you don't need to be carrying around. If you've ever been, and many of us have, of those people who wondered, am I doing something wrong in my salah? Or even better yet, because there are a lot of us, when we learned the salah, we learned from an individual who they just told us do this and don't do this. They didn't really explain to us too much of anything. And as time went on, if you're anything like me, as time went on and you started learning, listen, this wasn't right. That wasn't right. I shouldn't have been doing this. And it causes you to doubt, well, what about the rest of my prayer? And that pressure can wear on you and wear on your confidence when it comes to your worship. And this is something that you should be confident about. Not to the point where the brothers and the sisters, they tell you, well, look, it's your way and the way that you're doing it and everybody else is wrong. But you should have a certain level of confidence when it comes to your worship. You have to understand that you deserve clarity and not confusion. Now, in terms of the second lens, or that community lens I talked about a minute ago, then this issue divides the ummah on such a huge level. We've all seen arguments in the masjid. We've seen people walking away from groups because of this particular issue. And sometimes it's even passed down to our children. We teach our children to be suspicious of people because they do this or they don't do this in their salah. Now think about that for a minute. We're teaching our children to be suspicious of the Muslims because of the way that they pray. Now, this small movement, and I'm talking about the rafʿ al-yadayn, the raising of the hands, has been portrayed for many of us as, that we'll call it a marker of us versus them. And that's not the way of unity. That's not what it is that we're supposed to be when we talk about coming together as an ummah. Then you have the future lens. If we don't correct this right now, we'll keep the cycle of judgment and ignorance going for generations upon generations upon generations. And when you look at the state of the ummah today, can we really afford that? Now, I want you to imagine something. Close your eyes for a second. And I want you to imagine your son seeing someone doing something different than he does in the salah. And walking up to him, as we see it being done in our masajid often. Yo, akhi, yo, you're praying wrong. You got to do that again. And then understand that he's not doing this because he actually learned the evidences. Or we call them the dalil, or I don't know why we say dalils. Just to let you all know, the word is adilla, not dalils. We don't just throw S's on things. But this is what we've come to know it as, so I'm going to say it. All right? But for those of you who want to learn that which is correct, it's adilla. All right? So he's not doing this because he knows the dalils or he's ever learned the dalils, but because of his blind loyalty to the ignorance that he was taught. Now, how does this relate to our everyday life? Now, yes, I gave you some examples, so we could tie it together. But I want to give you another one, make it a little more clear for you. Something that may hit home on a more everyday basis for each and every one of us. Now imagine you're standing in the masjid and the brother next to you or the sister next to you, so we don't catch any of that, well, what about this, what about that? And they raise their hands before going into rukuʿ. But you don't. So while you're praying, while you're supposed to be focusing on your salah, while you're supposed to be focusing on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, while you're supposed to be focusing on your ibadah, you're wondering what it is he's doing. You're thinking, okay, is he doing bid'ah or isn't he doing bid'ah? Don't tell me this doesn't go through some of y'all's heads, if not the majority of y'all. Or worse, you have the other side, those people who may see someone that they may respect, not knowing that they may not know any better either. But because of the fact that there's somebody that's looked at and we say, okay, well, because I'm not doing it and they're doing it, is my prayer even valid? Or maybe you stopped doing it years ago, meaning the rafʿ al-yadayn, because someone told you, listen, don't do that. This is a them type of thing. And it's not our madhahib. So you don't do that. But here's what most people don't realize. The Shafi'is and the Ḥanbalis, they do raise their hands at 3 points generally. And this is before the rukuʿ, this is after the rukuʿ, and this is when raising for the third rak'ah. Meaning after the first tashahhud, when they stand back up for that next rak'ah. And they base it all on authentic hadith. Now, I know there are going to be some of you that are going to say things like, well, so-and-so, he's Ḥanbali and he's Shafi'i, and he doesn't know. I don't mean everybody in the madhahib. I'm talking about an overall opinion of these madhahib, because there's no madhahib that all of the scholars of that madhahib say the same thing in most of these affairs. I'm talking about the overwhelming number of scholars in these particular madhahib. And then you have the Hanafi madhab, where generally, you're going to find that they only raise their hands at the start of the prayer for the takbirat ihram. Oh, and before someone makes a comment about that, yes, the Shafi'is and the Ḥanbalis also raise their hands for the takbirat ihram. The point I'm making here with the Hanafis is that there aren't any extras outside of the takbirat ihram, for the most part. All right? And that's not wrong, because it's based on the approach of prioritizing certain narrations over others. And the Malikis, they raise their hands at the start too, but they vary on the rest of the times on where you raise your hands and where you don't. And that's also backed by valid tradition. So the question isn't who's wrong. It's, do you know what your madhab is? And do you know what the others are doing? And that it's also a valid opinion or a valid way to go about doing things. You might be looking at a sunnah, calling it a mistake. Or even worse, teaching others to do the same. Now, you all know me. And you know I'm not going to just give you a problem and throw it in your lap and tell you to figure out how to solve it. I'm going to give you right now a simple solution that you can start using today. We need to stop acting like these differences of opinions are battles that need to be won. And here's what you need to know. This issue of rafʿ al-yadayn, or the raising of the hands, it's sunnah in some of the madhahib that you do it at certain times. Not doing it is also sunnah in other madhabs. And none of that invalidates your prayers. So instead of being so quick to judge one another, do this. First, learn your own madhab. If you're Shafi'i, Ḥanbali, Ḥanafi, Maliki, find a reliable source that explains the rulings to you clearly. 2, know the difference between an act that is considered to be mustahab or recommended, or what you all call sunnah. For those of you who study in my class, you know I try to kind of pull you away from that a little bit because of the vast meaning of this word sunnah. People understand certain things about things that aren't true. And I'll explain that in a second, a little bit. Or for a second, a little bit. When we say something is sunnah, people automatically think that it's not necessary, it's not an obligation. But in all actuality, the sunnah has things in it that is obligatory on you. Things that is recommended. Things that are only permissible. Things that are makruh. And things that are haram, not for the Prophet ﷺ, but for us as followers of Islam. So this is why I say, or I choose to use the word mustahab, or recommended. Because we need to know, and this was number 2, we need to know the difference between that which is recommended and that which is obligatory. Because the thing that many people don't seem to realize is that the raising of the hands that everyone seems to want to argue about all of the time, it's not a pillar of the prayer. It's meaning it's not something that's obligatory, something that if you don't do it, your prayer doesn't exist. And this even holds true for those people who consider it to be something that's recommended. It's not obligatory. It's a practice that has its roots in the authentic narrations. But not doing it doesn't mean that your salah is invalid. You need to understand this. And the third thing that I'm telling you that you need to do instead of being so judgmental is teach your families balance. Let your children know if they see someone praying in a way that is different, then what you need to do is you need to teach them this phrase. What is it? is that he's probably following another madhahib, and that's okay. Just think of how connected our communities would be if more of us understood this years back, instead of this idea that either it's correct or it's incorrect. Imagine how much better things would be. That one sentence can save your household, can save your family, and can save your community from a lifetime of arrogance and confusion. So let's talk. I really want to know from you. What were you taught about raising the hands in the prayer? And be honest. Did you ever look down on someone for praying differently than you did? Come on. We've all been at that point at some point in time. But growth starts with honesty. So leave us a comment in the comment section below and tell us a little bit about your experience. That way that not only can we all sit and talk it out, but those people who come back and see this video after and read through the comments, they can learn and benefit from the ignorance that we may have practiced in the past. As well, for those of you who want to learn more than just the basics, if you're serious about growing in your knowledge of Islam, if you want a space where real discussions like this can happen without any type of real judgment, then I want to send you to our academy, which is an Arabic Virtual Academy. But I want you to understand that this isn't for just passive Muslims that are just coasting through life. Instead, it's for those who are ready to learn and lead in their homes, in their masajid, and make changes in their own hearts. This is where growth begins. This is where clarity that we talked about before replaces that confusion that we talked about before. So click the link below in the comments section and learn more and join our community. Barakallahu fikum for being here, and let's keep learning together. And, as usual, I want to tell you, we appreciate all of y'all. We appreciate all of y'all's likes, comments, and shares. We ask you to continue to do so, especially with this video. Let me know what you think about these issues here. Am I by myself? Is this something that we only experience in my community? Or is this a big issue that you've experienced in your community as well? Tayyib. So, leave us some comments. All know that I deal directly with my comments, especially here on the YouTube channel. So, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we'll see you in the next video. We love all y'all. We appreciate y'all. And, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to continue to guide and bless all of us in the ummah. Allahumma ameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.